evening and welcome to Ways and Means. It's 6:02 p.m. and I'm going to call this meeting to order. I'm going to start by taking the roll. Councillor Bottomley.
Here.
Councillor Forgy.
Here.
Councillor Golub. Councillor Golub.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay.
And Councillor Toronto.
Also here.
Okay. This meeting is being recorded by the Ways and Means Committee. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, no person shall address a meeting of a public body without permission of the chair, and all persons shall, at the request of the chair, be silent. No person shall disrupt the proceedings of a meeting of a public body. If, after clear warning from the chair, a person continues to disrupt the proceedings, the chair may order the person to withdraw from the meeting, and if the person does not withdraw, the chair may authorize a constable or other officer to remove the person from the meeting. Okay, approval of the minutes from October 18th and November 15th of 2022. Would I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And can I have a vote on that, please? Where half of us are participating remotely, we will do a roll call vote. Councillor Forgy?
Can I just ask one question before we vote? Can the rest of our committee members put their pictures up or,
Oh,
put their videos up so we can see them
oh,
as members of the council
okay.
of the Ways and Means? Thank you.
All right. This is a point of order. Councillor Forgy was asking if you would care to put your camera on.
Mine does not work.
I'm honestly sick and in bed. I don't look great right now.
All good. That was
Sorry.
not required.
I would love to. Otherwise, I think it's really important.
Thank you. So
Sorry.
we're now taking a vote on the minutes. We're going to do a roll call vote of the minutes. Councillor Forgy.
Yes.
Councillor Bottomley.
Yes.
Councillor Toronto.
Yes.
And Councillor Golub.
Yes.
And myself, I'm voting in favor. Public comment. Does any member of the public wish to speak? I'm not seeing anyone, so we're going to move along. Motions approve payment of invoice for Connecticut Business Systems of $104 from fiscal year 23 veterans various paper products.
Second, 4G.
So do we have discussion or explanation on this? Did you have anything that you wanted to share with us, Director Schindler, on this? Okay. Any questions or discussion on that? Okay. So that was. So let's take a roll call vote then, okay? Councillor Forgy.
Yes.
Councillor Bottomley.
Yes.
Councillor Toronto.
Yes.
Councillor Golub.
Yes.
And I am a yes. All right. Very good. Order number fiscal year 23-102. The city council, upon recommendation of Mayor Rita Gardner and in accordance with Massachusetts general laws, fiscal year 23 reserve fund transfer request, move that it be ordered that the sum of $16,865.78 be transferred from the fiscal year 23 01001320.578 reserve fund to the fiscal year library account 01006100.5241 building and grounds maintenance. Reserve fund balance is $60,613 prior transfer from reserve fund to weights and measures of $14,387. Balance in the library building and grounds maintenance is $3,035.04. Majority vote required.
Second, Forgy.
Okay. Any discussion on this? I have a comment on that. It seems like they're having lots of trouble there. They've had to be called in several times, I think. So we'll be moving out shortly. I think by June 1st. Isn't that correct? So that's a good thing. Anybody else have any discussion on that? No. Okay. All right, I'm going to do a roll call vote. Counselor Forgy,
Yes.
Counselor Bottomley,
Yes.
Counselor Torenzo,
Yep.
and Counselor Golub.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So that's unanimous positive. All right. The next thing on the agenda is the discussion for the fiscal year 2024 Ways and Means budget agendas, both regular and budget. And for this, I'm hoping everyone will get their cameras out. And I want to look at what I had on my notes for this. Okay. So you can see the capital budget we've scheduled. Last year for capital, we had, I think, 4 meetings. And this year, we are going to attempt to do that in 3. And we have the dates for, I think we're the March 20th. Do you have the dates for those?
I have them. I
Go
think.
ahead, Catherine, that'd be great.
Yeah, I have 6 o'clock on Monday, the 20th, and 6 o'clock on Wednesday, the 29th, and Thursday, the 30th. That's what I have on my calendar. I think that's accurate.
Say again the last 2.
Yep. The 29th, Wednesday, the
Mhm.
29th, and Thursday, the 30th.
Okay, and so we're hoping that by the 30th, we'll have deliberations. And on the 20th, we were planning on having the school committee, but we haven't heard back from them yet. And DPW. And on the 29th, it was recreation, the fire department, and the police
Police.
department. And I can see actually that we have William Deputy Chief Gordon online. And I know that Director Warner already responded. So had you gotten a notice about that, Deputy Chief Gordon, if I might ask?
Yes, I did. I responded back to the email that that date was fine. with
Okay, thank you very much. All right. So I think that's our plan for that, okay? Now, to go on for the Ways and Means budget meetings, last year, I think we had maybe 9 different nights. Let me find my paper on that for the meetings. And I'm actually going to see if we could do those in a little less. And I really wanted Diana, Director Schindler, excuse me, everybody to kind of put their heads together on this. I wrote down our meetings from last year and how long they were and what we had. And I wanted to see if we could try to make that as easy as we could for the counselors, but also to be cognizant of our department heads. I was thinking of putting some of the financial things together. So last year, for the first meeting, we had the mayor and Director Gilman gave a presentation. So probably be the same, I'm thinking, except this time, we're lucky enough to have Director Schindler that I bet will be doing the presentation. And then we had the finance department, the financial department. That meeting only took about an hour and 20 minutes. So I'm hoping that we can combine and add more things. I'm just going to go through and say what they are so that we can all put our little heads together, okay? On the 14th was the school department, and I imagine their presentation may be a little longer this year than it was the last time, as that was Dr. DeBarge's first presentation. So it may be longer, but that was about an hour and a half. On the 19th, we had assessors, treasurers, debt, recreation, council on aging, and the clerk's office. And that was an hour and a half. On the 21st, we had accounting, legal, HR, licensing, planning, building, health, and veterans. On the 25th, we had police, fire, and DPW. And that meeting was the longest one. It was 3 hours, and Director Warner really just got started on his presentation. So I'm sure that that is not a good way to do that this year. And then on the 27th, we finished with Director Warner, and we had GSET and economic development. And then on the final night, we went over revolving, and then we had deliberations. So I just want us to think about that together, and I'd actually like that to be a back and forth if we could. I had some thoughts about it, and I'm just going to say something first, but I really would like your input because I want that to be reasonable. I was thinking, and could somebody be writing this down for me, because it's hard for me to, I've just realized that
And
I'm not actually writing it down. I'll have to go back home and watch this all over again to realize what we said. You're doing, thank you. So I was thinking, you know, the year overview and finance, and I want everybody to pipe up whenever they want to speak, but assessors and the treasurer, the debt was also part of that. Okay, so that would be assessors, treasurer, and debt. Maybe we actually could combine that. I think we could combine those whole 2 nights, and we'd just have to decide who we put up first.
right.
Well, obviously we have the mayor do her presentation
Yeah.
first, or, with Director Schindler. But then if there was, if we invited Hope or Ellen Boyer or Recreation, we could have them go before.
I was
Thoughts?
gonna, yeah, I have thoughts. So the way we kind of operate is licensing ends up falling under the mayor's office, small
Okay.
department. And then community and economic development kind of is a
Mhm.
sub office of the mayor's office. So
Right.
we could like logically combine them in one night. And then Director Schindler's whole bigger department is what you listed off, which would be like finance, accounting, treasurer collector, assessor, and maybe debt.
We could do debt and fixed costs like insurance. We could do that
Okay.
together, I think, too.
All that could probably be
All right,
a
so let's see.
reasonable amount of time one night.
And I saw you had your hand up, so I'm going to recognize you too. Go ahead.
Okay, when's the budget books going to be available?
April 1st is the
Okay.
deadline or
Good to know.
goal. Yeah.
So sometime between the first and the
Yeah.
first, sometime the first.
And
week
we'll
of
have a
April.
PDF before we have the physical ones too,
Yeah,
anyway. But
that's
yeah,
okay,
my goal is to
because-
get it in hand before you guys need it.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Thank you.
Right. That's a very good point. I was thinking about that because I actually need,
You need to see it.
I
Yeah,
need 5 or 6 days to, because of course,
Sure.
I go over it with.
We can,
fine-tooth.
what I can do is arrange to send the PDF to the clerk to distribute to counselors when I send it to print,
perfect.
because it's going to look the same, but it'll be a big fat PDF instead of because she'll have to put it in the drive because it's big.
Okay.
Okay,
So
you.
I just want to check with, I just want to check with Counselor Golub and Counselor Toronzo. I think we said we're going to pick the nights. We'll hope it will be a 6 o'clock start. And I'd like to say that we could go 3 hours with a max of 3.5. How does that sound to people? Wouldn't you rather have less nights? And I want, this is like general. So anybody can speak.
I would. I
Yeah,
would,
me,
yeah. Fewer nights, maybe go a little bit longer would be ideal for me at least.
Okay.
yeah, I agree. I have a hard time when I go over 9 o'clock, but if it's like a hard stop at 9:30, or I don't know how we do that, but yeah, I'd prefer fewer nights and like 6 to 9 range.
Okay. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Is that,
Anything that the committee wants is
Alright.
fine with me. I'm flexible enough to
all
do
right,
whatever needs to be done.
okay. So what do we have down so far for the first night? We have mayor, finance, assessors, treasurer, debt, licensing.
And community and economic development and assessor. Did you say that already?
Community and economic
So I think we
development.
said bring in community and economic development, mayor, so.
But like the mayor will do overall presentation and there's also the mayor's office budget. That's all, you're talking about that the same night, right?
Okay, but also because there, how about accounting? Because actually, yes, accounting,
Mhm.
Finance.
accounting, yes, we have finance, the mayor and finance, accounting, legal and HR, because they're not here. I mean, generally speaking, we speak on their behalf. You speak on their behalf,
Mhm.
okay? Legal and HR, does that sound reasonable? Mayor, finance, assessors, treasurer, debt, license, accounting, legal and HR. The veterans, did veterans speak or last year, I actually rewatched part of this so that I would know. I think that we spoke, the city spoke, or Director Gilman actually spoke on
I
behalf
think,
of the
yeah,
veterans.
I don't think they came.
Okay. Veterans. All right. So I'm actually just going to put these together first, and then we're going to look at the dates because it would be everly so much easier if these can be in the meeting room upstairs, but we have to check the availability as opposed to bringing all the cameras out, et cetera, for here. It would be so much easier if it was upstairs. All agreed? All right, so we could do. So we have the schools were an hour and a half, so schools, and that includes schools and the technical school. And if anybody, if there's a department head that's listening that has a conflict with any of the nights that we're choosing, I didn't have a particular, if someone was going to be away, please just put your microphone and on and speak up because we actually are all in this together. Okay. So we probably could do like, what do you think? Like COA, Coalition on Aging, the clerk's office, recreation, library, and schools in one night. Do you think, Chris? And anybody else? Let's write that down for number 2.
Were you, Ginny, I'm sorry, were you saying that, were we putting veterans on the first night or was that being contemplated for the second night?
Well, I'm trying to get it down to like 4 nights. Yes.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes,
if I
you
could?
certainly may.
Just in terms of sort of the functions that we group things. So,
Yes.
I think if you're trying to get like 4 nights or so, we could do the first night, the mayor could come, when we would do our summary presentation of the budget. And then, she could talk about her administrative budget. And I think at that point, maybe touch on community and economic development, because, that's a piece of sort of revenue and how we're generating revenues in
Okay.
the future. And then if you want to try to also do assessing, accounting, treasurer collector, debt and fixed costs, that's under my purview. So we could talk on those things if you think we could do that all in one night. And then it seems like DPW, Danny and I were agreeing that I think we really need to have a whole night for DPW, unless maybe you want to talk with veterans, if you want to throw veterans in, or if they
I don't
want to.
think they
If they
actually.
don't even want to come, then yeah, but DPW definitely needs
whole night.
time.
The only thing I would say about veterans, and I don't know how he'd feel about this, but we have a new director.
do have a new director,
So
Right.
Right.
So we could.
Chris might want to come. You could
Just give you.
have the clerk reach out and see if he wants to,
Mhm.
because
Just
he may
give-
want to
even-
introduce himself to the community.
Right, even coming on Zoom or just, to give you a brief overview of, any
Okay.
updates. And then I would suggest, keeping police and fire together and having that on one,
Yes,
one
that-
night. Obviously, and then schools, we'd have to check if you want Franklin County Tech School reps here, you have to check with their
They
schedule.
do come.
But yeah, I think that, and then council on aging, library and recreation, I would suggest, putting together, that's all sort of your culture accounts, and those kind of come together in the, in our system like that as well.
I think, so
Unless
what
you
I
think
was,
that's too much. Jenny,
I was
but-
thinking of putting them with the schools and having
Yeah.
maybe GSET and DPW be on the same night and having fire and then police on one night. That way we could do it in 4.
I think that sounds like a pretty good plan.
Okay?
GSET, yeah,
All right. So,
that'd be great, because those could put out, we also have water and sewer, so you might want to touch on that.
W
That's
and
also-
GSET, that's smart.
GSET,
also an
GSET and
enterprise.
DPW on one night.
Enterprise funds on the brain.
Well, and they do all the enterprise funds, on that, because that's good, because they'll all be enterprise on one night for people that are new. And then we'd have fire and police on the 4th night. Not that it necessarily had to be that way, as I said, if the department head had a schedule, but it's who you're going to put together so we can do it in as few meetings as possible. And when any department is coming before us, if they have a revolving account, they can go over that at the time, because that's something I think that we sometimes lost sight of. Okay, so I just want to go over, what do we have down for? The 3rd night and the 4th night, I'm fine, but what do we have for night number 2? Schools, COA.
I had recreation, library,
Recreation and library,
Clerk,
library.
in the tech school.
Yeah.
At the schools.
Okay. Now I'm going to actually go to the calendar to check with everyone, because we'll have 4 nights, we'll say, and then there'll be a night of deliberations.
That's fine.
Because Kathy had given me a night of when so I'm gonna have to look at my calendar too while we're doing this, but she gave me nights for when there was nothing happening. And Danny, you can help with this also
Yeah,
if you
I can.
can.
I
see it.
can. I can see the calendar for the town hall meeting room.
Yes, because the plan was that by the end of March, we would be done with capital. So now we're going on to April. And we're thinking that we're probably going to have those budget books by the beginning of April, so we could start.
Yep.
Perhaps. I like to have a chance to read it.
Week of the 10th.
The 10th. 6 PM, it says, there's something, it says 6 PM, HUMAN. What's that? Oh, the Human Rights Commission?
Human Rights Commission, they typically have been meeting remotely and not in the meeting room. But I'd have to check with them. They're actually meeting tonight remotely. Unless they did take the meeting room, which might be why we're not in there.
Because they're on my, they're on my list.
Mhm. Monday, April 10th, they have dibs on the meeting room right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Economic development, we have people sitting here who are on economic development. And 5:30 PM is appointments and ordinances, which actually gives us either probably the 13th that week that's available, right?
Yep, 13th it is available.
Okay. Now, the next week is vacation week, is school vacation week, I believe. We'll
Yes.
look at that.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Is anybody unavailable then?
We are going away the 17th and the 18th. It's possible that we might be back on time for Tuesday night, but I'm not sure yet.
17th and 18th.
I'm not available that week.
You're not available. Well, that's very fine.
Can I also add, this is just I don't want to throw a wrench in things, but I just want to note, we got that email from Elena from Joe Comerford's office saying that the Senate passed.
Mhm.
They moved to extend the exception to continue remote meetings for the next, or hybrid meetings for the next 2 years. So
Mhm.
I imagine that's something we'll be talking about, but just want to throw that in there as a possible thing that there might be remote possibility too.
Thank you very much, Catherine. I asked Kathy Scott about that when she was here today. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I will be available through Zoom, but I will not be in person through
Okay.
that week. So if
All right, so
that's an option, I'll be available through Zoom.
And would you, so yes, Catherine, to answer you, it had gone through the House and the Senate, but hadn't had final approval.
Yeah.
So I think that definitely is coming, but I'm not really sure about that. For right now, we were planning on these subcommittee meetings being hybrid, and actually what you need is one person in the room at City Hall for that to happen. I mean, I'd like to have another person that's there with me. Truthfully, just for locking the place up and
I mean,
safety.
it's right next to my office, so I'll
Yes,
probably be
and
there.
safety, I think that's a good idea. I volunteered to go down the other night when somebody had some difficulty. So let's go back to, like, now that we're looking at the schedule. So we think
Is there any way the 12th, is the 12th open? Just
the
thinking if we,
12th is appointments and ordinances, and they meet in that room.
they're on Wednesdays?
Yeah.
Huh.
Did
I
we
don't know why.
say, did we
No,
say
I
that?
thought they were on Tuesdays.
No, we're there. Did we
Yeah.
say the 13th?
Yeah.
Excuse me for 1 minute.
Yes.
Okay. So listen, the way I'm thinking about this is that the budget comes first. That's kind of how I'm looking at this. We should not have to work around other committee meetings and assignments. They should move for us. So we should be able, because we have the element of having department heads here and other town employees and everything else, we should pick a schedule, do a schedule. My opinion, other committees can work around us. I just think we're the most important at this time, and it's urgent and there's time constraint. Unless there's a pressing, issue that somebody has, like a significant public hearing or whatever that turns out to be. I just think that Ways and Means needs to get its budget work done, and everybody else on council needs to respect that.
That's an excellent point, Council Forgy. And I think that we actually, during budget season, sometimes we canceled some of the.
We did
subcommittee
last
meetings.
year. Yep.
I know that Counselor Elmer was more than willing, he has economic development, he's more than willing to move. I just want to go back to you as a committee, though. If we're going to have 3-hour meetings, do you want to have 1 a week or 2 a week?
Doesn't matter.
Anybody else?
I mean,
Counselor Toronto,
no, it doesn't really matter to me on that.
you don't care
aspect.
whether it's 1 or 2 a week?
No,
No,
Yeah.
I mean, if it's gonna be teamed up with the same week as our full council meeting, I'd rather just be 1 on that week, maybe.
Great.
Yeah, I really appreciate this conversation and that we're trying to make as few as possible. And I get that scheduling is tough. As I think about it, if our council meeting in April is going to be as long as it sometimes is, I might be not full capacity on Thursday afterwards, but hopefully it won't be. So
Okay.
whatever is possible.
Okay, so why don't we say the first one, then the 11th, April 11th, which is when economic development was supposed to be. How does that sound for everybody? April 11th?
I mean,
Yep, I can do
Yep.
that.
Sure.
Okay. The next week, that's vacation week. We're going to have Ways and Means anyways on the 18th. That's our city council meeting is on the 19th. People who are not here can participate remotely. That will be the meeting where we're having like recreation, the library, et cetera. But we also will be probably, that may not work for the schools. We could do maybe. You said Malo that night, if directed.
Well,
Go ahead.
you're talking about the 18th?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
18.
Yeah,
At the 18th, I'm just thinking that if there are some formalities that we have to go through, well, we will have to go through a second reading. Ways and Means will have to do the second reading and the deliberation on first reading stuff, which will happen this month. So Ways and Means, it's got to get that council business done first, and then just because of going forward with the rules, and then maybe we can pick another date. I mean, there is nothing that says, is there? There's nothing that says that we have to be totally completed in March. We could go into April, we could go into the first week of May.
Mhm. That's,
There is what's the
That's-
law about, there's a vote rule. So when you butt up against that on that end, is it 60 days before the fiscal year or 30 days?
I'm just looking,
it's a 111 day. I believe it's 111 days.
Oh, yes, that weird one. Yeah.
it's- So, but Councilor Forgy, I think the plan on the capital was because we actually had less capital requests, that we were going to have our first meeting on the 20th. Then our second meeting was going to be, we have 2 in 1 week, and we'd be finishing our deliberations on,
the 30th.
the 30th, yeah, I get that.
mhm. And so am I missing something there?
Well, I'm just saying you could go into, if the time frame works, sorry, this is annoying. If the time frame works, we might be able to go into the first week of May. Now, that's what I'm asking, that 110 day, to have our fourth meeting or a deliberation meeting or whatever it is we're going to have. I'm assuming it's going to be, yeah. If we're going to have 3-hour meetings, then we can have 2 presentations and an hour of deliberation sometime in the first week of May before we vote the budget. Looks like the 17th will be when we vote the budget.
Mhm.
Or we could do our deliberations on the 16th, Ways and Means. I mean, I'm just trying to, 3 hour, if everybody wants to meet 3 hours once a week, then we are going to run out of weeks.
Okay.
Okay.
So
I mean, we've got the 11th and 13th locked in, right? Is that what you're saying?
11, no, I was thinking 11 and, do you want 11 and 13? That would be
I would prefer just to have one that week.
one that week. Okay, so why don't we do the 11th? And the 18th, we normally have a meeting anyways.
You're going to need another one that week, I think. Maybe, I don't know.
You guys
that
know,
could-
your council meeting is the 19th.
Yeah,
just
the
to be clear.
19th is council meeting. If you go back out to the 24th or 25th, that could be your next meeting. Then you have to go into May.
24. So how about 18? That's too much to have. I personally, I think that's too much to have 18th, 19th, and then 20th.
Okay, I agree with
I think
that.
I think that's an awful lot for people.
Mhm.
Sure.
Okay, so I would say 18th would be our second. And because we have city council on the 19th. The 24th, which is a Monday. Could be meeting number 3.
That works for me.
Mhm.
And
You can have it on May 2nd. That's going to be chairs.
well, we could do 2 that week. That might be reasonable.
Yep.
24 and
Did you-
27.
Discarded April 13th. Is that what happened?
We'll
Yeah.
start April 11th.
Okay, wait a minute. April 11th, April
April
18th,
11th, April 18th,
April 24.
April 24th, and I'm looking at this calendar to see when the meeting room is open. So I'm saying the 27th, as that appears to be, actually, I'm not checking my.
Okay,
um,
now the second, the
27th? 27th for meeting number 4.
okay,
Okay.
And
Should you schedule a 5th? I think,
yes, we need to
Mhm.
schedule
Yeah.
a 5th. Because the one problem that we might have is the 18th.
agreed.
Okay, so going on to the next week, which is the first week of May. That could be, I'm sure that Council Forgy would be willing to give up her community relations night.
so we were just looking
Well,
at the
we'll see.
calendar.
Yes. Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm actually unavailable on the evening of the 11th, and that is now, I'm hearing what you want is like the first night that you want us to make a presentation. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I
that's-
have an appointment out of town and I wouldn't be able to be back in town.
All
in
right.
time. Sorry.
Okay, so we'll go back to the drawing board on that in a second. That's okay, but I
Okay.
mean, we actually are going to need the finance director to be here for
Right.
that because you're
Yeah.
going to be doing the presentation. That's entirely, we're all in this together.
And I'm
okay?
actually going to be in
Any other day-
Boston on
any
the
other-
11th, which I would have zoomed in if she was coming, but
I could
That's-
do April 13. I can do actually any other day that week. I just can't do that.
How about you?
That's fine. I can just do one that week.
Okay, so just one that week. So we're going to change that. Did everybody hear that? We're going to move that to April 13th will be our first meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
perfect.
Okay? All right. This,
I was actually just wondering, the calendar you guys are looking at for availability is the city calendar, right?
pardon me?
Is the calendar you guys are looking at for availability the one that's on the website?
No,
We're looking at,
Oh,
I'm looking at a city calendar that Kathy Scott gave to me because it shows the
Oh.
availability of the meeting room at City Hall, which
Yep.
is inordinately easier to conduct a meeting from.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
Is-
sure. No, I was just wondering because I was looking at April. I'm like, there's not a lot really on the city calendar right now. So I was,
no, she printed out the internal scheduling calendar from Google. Yeah. Perfect.
Okay, so we're going to go back to April 13th, April 13th, April 18th, April 24th, and April 27th. I understand that some people might have a problem with that night of the 18th, but I don't see any reason why Zoom was not, we're amenable to hybrid.
May I also suggest that we schedule a 5th meeting,
Yeah.
just in case, and
Well-
it can be canceled.
Well, yes. Whatever the fifth, when we have that fifth meeting, we'll try to do that with deliberations. How about that? Is that reasonable, Council 4G?
With what? I'm sorry?
With deliberations?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So now looking at the first week of May,
May 1st?
May 1st, the library board is meeting in that room.
The third,
The third is a possibility.
The library foundation is often done by 6 and before. So if you, depending on what time you're talking about,
They're going to start at 6 PM.
they're in there at 5 right now.
It-
well,
I'm,
again, not for nothing, but
right.
they need maybe to keep their meeting shorter and let the budget go forward.
Well, it could be Tuesday, it could be Tuesday, the second.
Committee chairs.
That's chairs,
Oh, yeah, committee chairs, okay.
and that one we can't ignore.
No,
I feel like the library foundation would happily get bumped if they're gonna go in that room. I usually see them when they come in. They do start usually at 5. And they're frequently done before 6, but if
well,
the clerk or somebody wants to reach out to them, I could reach out to them.
we could do the third, though. Does anybody have a problem with the third?
Third's much better for me. I could make either, but it's better if it's possible.
Okay, so that's meeting number 5.
May
All
3rd.
right.
And all meetings will start at 6.
All meetings are going to start at 6
Okay,
and we'll go till we just can't go anymore.
okay.
But just, no, just really, because remember, we had like 11 of them scheduled last time. And I timed them to see how long everything took. And I thought this is more reasonable. And we'll invite the different department heads. But if people want to know what to plan for, I would think we have to send out invitations. It might be more reasonable not to have the school committee on on school vacation week.
Yeah,
Okay, so, all
can
right,
move people around that way. I like these
Okay.
bundles that you've created though. It seems like a logical bundles.
well, right. Okay, all right, well, that's all on that. Now, moving forward, that actually, I wanted to do that with everybody present. And were there any department heads that had a problem with any of that? Speak now. I'm happy to listen to people. Okay.
So we're
okay.
saying our tentative night 2 being the 18th, we're not gonna have what we had kind of boxed into number 2. We might be moving like either DPW or GSET that week.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Right, we'll reach out to the department heads. We just had to get that sort of down pat with what worked for us, and I'm so happy that we were checking with Director Schindler while she was sitting here, because we really can't do the finance part without her. Okay. So, all right, now I have to put these away. Okay, so next on our agenda is I believe the next thing on the agenda is the police budget. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So, Director Schindler and Deputy Chief Gordon. So, how are we doing on I'm just going to ask a general question now, and I had a couple of specifics, but how are we doing budget-wise? I think you very kindly sent everything. Yes, yes.
So I think I'm sorry,
am
your
I-
next is the
am I out?
Community Preservation Committee
Oh, all
budget
righty.
process, and I guess really what we're going to be looking at this evening will be whether or not
Oh, the floor.
we like the plan.
Yes.
So I'll jump ahead and say I like the plan very much.
Okay.
It makes sense and I think we need to remember that the Community Preservation Fund or committee has already gone ahead and done the hard stuff, which is make the decisions about what they want to see funded. And for
Mhm.
those that can't see the flow chart that we received, it was basically that they make those decisions. Those get sent over to the mayor. The mayor, in essence, sends them along to the council for financial approval. And then after that, the money, I think it's, I'm sorry, CJ, is it? No, MJ, I'm sorry. MJ Adams takes it from there and we distribute funds to the projects. So that was kind of it in a nutshell. And I think that works very well.
Right. Yes, I reviewed that with President Gwynn today, and I was in agreement with that. Did everybody get a chance to see the flow chart?
Yep.
Okay. And they are voting on their things on March 20th, I think on
March 23rd, I think it's at.
23rd. So which was good because it was one thing for recreation that overlapped, I think, the bocce courts. So they will have voted on that before we have our capital meeting on that,
Okay.
which is wonderful. Okay. So onward to our discussion on the police budget.
No, the opioid settlement money.
Oh, okay. Opioid settlement.
Opioid
money.
settlement money is the next thing on
All
the
right.
agenda.
Thank you,
Yep.
Counselor Forgy.
Yep.
That's take two. Take two is opioid settlement. Opioid settlement money is on the agenda. So somebody actually had brought that to my attention. I believe that this is money that we would be getting every year. I think you probably had a hint that I was going to ask about this, Director Schindler. So it's 195,000 that came into the city this year. I'm assuming that went in, and I'm just assuming, but I'm not exactly sure where that went. What I had a question about was, first of all, I think that was from one entity, but it's something that's going to be annual. And is it subject to appropriation? It's not grant money. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that, because I think it's probably new to all of us.
Sure. So right now, as you mentioned, there are several funding sources, if you will, or sources of funding through the settlement. So we'll be getting more revenues over the years for these settlements at different times and different allotments. There's a whole schedule for that. Currently, DOR has not made a general rule about putting this money into any kind of special reserve or purpose fund. So it must go into the general fund at this time, and it must be closed out to free cash and then appropriated for the purpose of which that it is intended for, unless the community votes another type of special purpose fund. So we could vote a stabilization fund that we could then put the funds into. But at this point, the way that we have received the funds, they still this year must close out to free cash and then be appropriated into that stabilization fund, should it be created, or into an appropriation that would fund its intended purpose. So I would recommend, we've been sort of waiting to see if DOR would come out with a recommendation that would be more of a best practice or a standard across the state. Since that isn't occurring, I think we should consider setting up a special stabilization account so we can ensure the money gets put into that account and spent properly for the purpose. Otherwise, it is, like I said, it's going to get tangled up in the free cash and then has to be appropriated later, which can be a little more confusing and, just cause unintended consequences.
Thank you. So if we were doing that, Would that need to be set up by the end of this fiscal year, by July 1?
It doesn't have to be set up by July 1st, because as I know, as I alluded to, we would have to still we've taken the proceeds into our general receipts, and they're going to have to close out to free cash before it can be put into that stabilization fund. So at some point before we were ready to put those monies into that fund. By August 1st, the municipality does have to report to the state on our plan for using the funds and how much funds we've received and how we have allocated them, where they live. Have they been appropriated, and are they in an appropriation, or are they in a special reserve? We have to report that by August 1st. So,
Is the cash here?
Mhm.
yes,
We have 199,
some of it
992,
is.
20.
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Could I ask, Counselor? Director Schindler, so you were saying that you wanted to wait for guidance from DOR on is it on how this money can be used, or on how to set up a certain stabilization for it? I presume that they already have specific guidelines on how this money its intent is to be used. Is that so? This, because I like the suggestion of having this into a stabilization that would not muddy the waters later if it, and it would definitely be spent where it's supposed to be spent. Would it be that I guess what I'm asking is there a good set of language already set up that we could almost, I don't know, for lack of a better term, cut and paste into what we would be saying a stabilization fund that we set up would be used for?
So I think I'm going to answer your question as I think what the intended question is, which
Okay.
is
Sorry.
what type of fund was I alluding to about DOR? So basically, there is a better mechanism than setting up a stabilization fund and then voting the money into a stabilization fund. And that would be a special purpose fund, because
Okay.
then you can set it up and the receipts from whatever the purposes can be set aside and used, or the fees and charges that come from whatever the situation is, then can then be used for the same purpose.
Okay.
But DOR hasn't set that up yet, and is not allowing that type of fund to be set up. So we don't have that option at this time. The only options we have are to certify the money to free cash and set it aside in a stabilization fund until such time as we're going to use it. Or we can also put it into our budget for FY24 and allocate the estimated receipts to fund it in our budget. So, but we'd have to do an appropriation for that. And then we would just have to understand that those receipts are not available as estimated receipts. They're actually set aside for that purpose. So DOR has said we can do that as well, because they are encouraging the municipality to use the funds, readily as soon as possible.
Okay. And their guidelines are relatively clear on what specifically on what these are, or are they on what the money would be used for, is I guess what I'm
There's
saying.
guidelines in the state, in the settlement agreements that the states have made with the opioid manufacturers of specifically what the purpose has to be. So it's not set by DOR, but it is set by the state.
Okay.
Does the mayor have any plan of seeking out like community or organization advice on creating that plan by August 1st? Because that's coming up kind of quickly. I'm wondering how we decide how to allocate those funds.
Right. No, I think the mayor was taking the director of finance's guidance and waiting to see if they did allowed for a special purpose fund or not, and then we would go from there. But currently, I mean, there's a few conversations about options, but it's a little murky on exactly how to use it if you don't do, like I've heard of other communities doing public forums and different things like that. A lot of those are communities where they're small communities and they're teaming up with other small communities to make one larger pile. Greenfield is a little different because we're a little bigger, so we're getting more than some of our neighboring communities. So we don't have to pool it to make it have an impact, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yes, but I do understand from my conversations with the mayor that she is going to be preparing a plan in the
Mhm.
coming months. She is aware that that is a requirement of the state. She will be preparing that.
But am I correct, though, from what I read, they give those guidelines. And they didn't have a complete set of guidelines for this yet. So that's, I think, why we were asking. The settlement, they had a purpose behind them, but you know, I guess we wanted to work together on that to see if we come to some kind of an agreement.
I think from my perspective, just rest assured that we do have the money and we understand how much we have in our coffers and we will have it available to be spent on the purposes of which that it's identified for. So, so regardless of whether we set up a stabilization fund or not, you know, that money will be available when the mayor and the council is ready to, you know, to execute that plan.
Thank you. And I see Council Golub has her hand up. Council
Yeah.
Golub?
Yeah, thank you. I'm wondering I'm not sure if I'm getting the name right, but the opioid task force, if they've been consulted on this. And yeah, that's my first question.
Yeah, I mean, the city has worked with the opioid task force a lot over the last
Yeah.
3 years that we've been here. We were aware that the settlement was coming. We were aware the settlement started getting distributed. Yes.
Anything further on that, Catherine?
I guess I'm not sure what the process is for. I'm trying to think this through, and I'm wondering when. Yeah, I'm gonna think out loud. How a stabilization fund would be created, because I hear the intent with what you're saying, Director Schindler, that to keep this money in a safe pot that's that's designated for its specific intent. And I'm wondering what the process for setting that up is. And also, yeah, as you're saying, Danny, that there's been a lot of collaboration with the opioid task force, and I'm wondering, feels like they know more than I do about how this should happen. Yeah.
The health department?
So
Oh,
to address it, so setting up a stabilization account,
Yeah.
that would be a request from the administration to create one and for its intended purpose. And as long as it was that it was something we could do statutorily, legally, then it would come to you to set that up, and it would be a vote of the city council to set
Okay.
the stabilization fund up.
So one of us would have to move to create that.
Or
No,
the
that
mayor
would
could
be
submit it.
the-
Yeah.
The mayor would submit
There would
that.
be an
Okay,
order.
from-
Yeah.
From the,
got it. Thank you.
from the mayor's office. You know, there's a lot of programs that could be using that. I would think the health department.
Mhm. Everybody's talking about it.
Right. So it was just a topic to bring up. I'm not in
Okay.
charge of it.
Yeah.
But I think that it is something that it was just good to be talking about tonight, because we're going to continue to get a significant settlement.
The mayor has, you know, obviously talked to the health department, public safety, different departments where it would be appropriate, where it falls under the guidelines, and also some community folks. I know she's been taking meetings all year, kind of here and there to get input on that. So when this on
Right.
your agenda will spur that next
Okay.
step.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Anything more on that? All right. We won't beat that one up any further. So now that I've gotten back and found my agenda, Councilor Forgy,
Okay.
I'm going to go to the next thing that's in order, because there we go. And thank
Okay.
you for keeping me right on track. All right. So we wanted to talk about the fiscal year 23 police budget to see how we were doing there. And we have Director Schindler, and we have Deputy Chief Gordon on the line. And I, just going to ask for updates for where we are. I have some specific questions. I'm hoping that Deputy Chief Gordon might enlighten all of us with, what's going on with staffing, et cetera. And there you go. So I'm going to give it to Director Schindler first. Thank you.
Well, I guess what what exactly is your question about the budget? The budget is running, it's moving along. I mean, I would let the deputy address the staffing issue, but we have, I know as the director, I sign off on requisitions. I've signed off on, I believe, again, he can clarify, it's at least 4 requisitions, if not 5, to start the hiring process.
Okay.
So that is my way of confirming that money is available in the budget. So I do believe that, they've been encouraged to go ahead and do that. I don't know if there's any other questions directly related to the budget that you wanted to ask.
So I wrote to you the vacation buyback that we had for, and I think you actually answered this, but I'm going to say this out loud for the benefit of the people who are listening. It looked as if this year we'd used approximately 174,000. I'm just saying that from memory, but it was right about there for vacation buyback for people who had left. And we put extra money into compensated absences. And you explained to me via email that towards the end of the year, you'd be able to make that transfer, but that would actually, just by making that transfer with the money that we put into compensated absences, that actually would, in addition to what we had not spent on expenses, actually put that in the plus. That's where I am. Is that pretty much on track?
I agree.
Okay, because I had us being up like probably about 250,000. I sat down with my pen and paper because there was a lot on the expense line that hadn't been spent. And while I have the microphone, I'm going to keep going. One of the things that wasn't expended yet for fiscal year 23 was $55,000. This is in expenses on leases. And but I heard from Deputy Chief Gordon, I believe that leases are paid at the end of the year. So that's a specific question. I'm going to just name my specific question. Well, I'll let you have that one first. Do you know about that? About the leases?
He's correct. The lease payment is still due. It just has not occurred yet. So it is later in the fiscal year. And it hasn't shown, we don't encumber it, but it is due. So
Okay.
it just hasn't been made yet.
And is that 55,000? And I'm getting these leases. I've requested them. And is that 55,000 for what? For how many cars?
I believe that's for 2 cars.
Okay. And the payment is due at the end of the year.
Mhm.
So that's 2. Okay. So my other question was on the K-9 fund. So there was a special, you sent me this, the special revenue. Is the special revenue allowed to be used for wages or not?
There are 2 gift accounts. One of them is a special purpose account or a special purpose gift can only be used for the expenses, certain expenses related to the dog and training. It cannot be used on salaries. There is a more general gift account within that K-9 fund that can be used. It isn't currently, but it could be.
And the combination of those 2 was about 15,000 or 14 and change.
Mhm.
How much was in each? About. I'm not holding you to that. And
If I have that detail. I'd have to go into Munis and look that up.
sorry to put you on the spot. I certainly hate to be put on the spot with numbers. Because actually I'll just talk while you're looking. Is that okay?
Sure. Give it a try.
So I thought if it couldn't be, would that ever be possible to put towards, if it was a vehicle that, because we have two K-9 vehicles. Yeah, so that was my thought. And Deputy Chief Gordon, you're in here listening. And so if you know something that, or if I misspoke in any way, please correct me.
So far, so good.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I have that breakdown. I
Oh,
think I
that's
just
fine.
Have it in something called a K-9 fund.
That's
I mean, I
fine.
have it not handy.
Did you hear the other question? Would vehicle expenses related to the K-9 be considered a appropriate use of K-9? gift fund?
Again, not for the set aside for the training, and that was specifically for Nico. But for the general gift account, it was not designated. It's just for the K-9s, anything
Okay.
related to the K-9. So if
All
it
right.
was related to them, it could be used that way.
Does anybody have any other questions? That people were very generous. It's wonderful. I just wanted to see how in the end of the year we were going to use, how that was going to be used.
And I do want to note that, we do have expenses that are occurring against those accounts related to the care and custody of the dogs, meaning the food and the not sheltering, but the food and the, leashes and harnesses and toys. And again, the deputy could probably give you some more, maybe crates and, those bags that you used to pick up the poo and all that.
And the vet bills. Don't forget the vet
And the
bills.
vet bills, yeah, exactly.
So that gift account is being utilized.
It
and
is
spent
being
down.
utilized, yes, yes.
Yes, Counselor Forgy.
Oh, thank you. Okay. The acoustics in here are awful, so
Yeah.
you have to forgive me because I'm halfway to hearing aids. Anyway, your first statement, you talked about there is money to put 4 officers on board.
So we had, yes, in the budget, based on moving the compensated absences, the money, that will move for that out of the budget. And also, just as we have reallocated the encumbrances, as you and I had talked at one point, that as
Right.
people leave, the system automatically reallocates that money. So that has come back, shown back up. And also because of the grant, because we knew we were going to have those
Yes.
grant proceeds. So
Yes.
yes, so we have signed, again, Deputy, could you correct me? Is it 4 or 5? I feel like at least 4 requisitions for hiring officers.
Technically, we have 5 that have been signed, but we're going to only act on 4 of them at the moment.
Okay, and that is due, and it just so I'm clear, that is due to both the grant and also to balances left in the police department budget upon the departure of a certain number of officers.
Correct.
Okay,
As had been discussed, because of the pay grades of those officers that left, and that they were also in command, other, once they command, I guess, lieutenant and sergeants, that has freed up, some monies to hire, and they're hiring now at the step 1 level.
so I'm very glad to hear that, but I guess being the person that I am, I have to ask the question, why at this late date are we coming across? I know, I understand the grant, and I also mean this respectfully, Deputy Chief Gordon. What I'm not understanding is why there were no projections made in advance. And this may not be your question, actually. This may be the mayor's question, why there was no planning and brainstorming when you knew the budget was going to be short and you knew that people were leaving Why did we have to wait till the 11th hour before these figures became clear? That would be my question. And if you are not comfortable answering that, I appreciate that very much. I think the question probably is more to the mayor at this point. So that's perfectly okay. That's my statement.
I could help with that if you want.
Oh, I'd love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of the fiscal year, Officer Gordon left. In October, the beginning of October, we had Officer Sumner and Officer Hewitt leave. Officer Hewitt and Officer Sumner was basically a surprise. We didn't see those ones coming. However, what we thought may be coming was Lieutenant McCarthy retiring. He projected that out for a while. However, nothing is guaranteed until they go. Sergeant Rice made mention that he was thinking about retiring, but before his maximum date. And he didn't really tell us that he was going to have a date until the beginning of December. And he gave us a January date. But again, on a retirement, somebody can cancel the retirement plans up until the day that they leave. So you can't really plan on those positions leaving. So although we had an inkling that they were going to be going, we couldn't actually spend that money that they were going. And then the last person that left for the State Police Academy, he told us in February. We did act on that position right away. So that position, as soon as we found out, that was one of the requisitions that we did. And the grant was the 3 requisitions. That makes the 4 hiring. We didn't know any of that until February. So it wasn't able to project all of that last summer. We just had to wait until they actually walked out the door.
And I just want to say from my perspective, I think that the deputy said it very succinctly, but it is, we can, from a finance standpoint, if somebody is, when we're looking at the appropriation, we do the encumbrances and we do try to look at projections and to ensure that, mostly to make sure people are staying within the spending appropriation. So, but we can't assume, as the deputy said, that just because people have said they're leaving, that they're absolutely leaving.
Right.
And we can't allow money to be spent in anticipation of that. We have to go by what we actually know. So, I wanted just to add that.
Yeah, I was going to say, just adding, in terms of the actual requisition itself, the finance director won't sign it unless they know that there is money
Right.
for that position. And so we've had people leave where they're still being paid. We've had positions vacant in other departments for 3-4 months for various reasons, including, paying their vacation, or they've decided to take some other time on the way out. And we have to give that time to reappropriate before I would get permission to fill that position. But I think he said it the best, so.
So may I follow up? Is that okay? Keep the conversation going. I'm delighted we're having a conversation about this, actually. So having worked in municipal finance, I do understand exactly what you're talking about, and I know it's very strict in regard to expenditure. I guess you were not on board at this time, Diana, or if that's okay to address you that way. Okay. Where I'm coming from at this particular time is that I am talking about planning and forecasting, which I don't think hurts an organization to do that if they examine the what ifs. Well, we know that Officer Gordon is on a year's leave of absence for, this long a period of time at this amount of money. We understand the budget has been cut bottom line. We understand a lot of variables, but my focus right now is, and there may not be any acceptable answer or one that I'm willing to accept, is that there should have been a lot of planning going on the what ifs. Also, I did hear the chief when he did address the council and tell us that the midnight shift or the 11 to 7 shift was going to shut down. He said, I have no money and I have no people. And now I'm looking at these numbers and I'm thinking that wasn't exactly on the money, in my opinion. I think that had there been a little bit more forecast or a little bit more planning, we could have averted a number of things that happened to us at the 11th hour. Also, I want to say, being a retiree of the city of Greenfield and also having a spouse who's a retiree of the city of Greenfield, that I am well aware that retirement plans, some people use them as a threat, some people use them, as a joke. I'm only making, I'm only saying this, but it is very hard to dictate when somebody you can't dictate when somebody is going to retire. So I appreciate the fact that it's not a done deal until it's a done deal. Again, however, it seemed likely to me that there could have been a forecast in place that might have smoothed this along and helped not create a crisis situation in Greenfield and not get everybody angry and all riled up. So that's my opinion. Thank you for listening to me. I appreciate your answers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Fuji. I just had one comment on that because I've been watching the encumbrances, but the expense line. And to my calculations, I've been watching it right along. And I think that they'd done a marvelous job tightening their belts on the expense line, but it looked like there was about 175 left in that. And so I kind of concur with Councilor Forgy. It's exactly what I'd do if I had to staff a department, but I could see that was there. So moving along from that, I just want to be proactive on one thing. I had a great conversation with Deputy Chief Gordon. I want to make sure that our officers are in cars that are safe, that have great brakes, that can, slow down as quickly as possible and accelerate the same way. I just, Director Schindler, while you're working on the operating budget, every year we've had the vehicles in a lease program. I'm not in charge of any of this, but I want to put this out there that for myself, I'm hoping that they will continue to be there because they, as you know, you were at the capital improvement committees and so was I. We have a lease with a lease schedule, and I just want you to consider the operating budget for continuing to have the vehicles there, because I think that has the, I can't speak for the council. I'm just seeing that to start a new program right now might be of concern. So I just wanted to be proactive and point that out to you ahead of time. It was one of the reasons why I put that this on the agenda. I know that we're going to be having this discussion later with capital improvements, but by the time that we get there, I think your operating budget will be done. And I don't actually know where you are with that, but it was a change in the budget. And at Capital Committee in December and November, they brought this up. So I just wanted to reiterate that sometimes it's so much easier to do things on the front end than the back end. So that's my little sharing of that. And I do want our officers to be in good, safe cars. And everything I've read about it was that was the more economical way to do it.
So you are saying, could you just clarify then what are you asking if we're going to continue keeping the lease in the operating budget that's currently in there for the 2 vehicles? Or are you suggesting that we should continue to lease police vehicles and do something different than what we're recommending in the capital orders?
So for what I'm saying is for the past maybe 8 years, 10 years, we've been doing a leasing program that where it came out of the operating budget. That's factual. I actually looked back. That's true. It was 155. I have it here in front of me. Cruiser leases in 21 was, this is under operating. It's operating budget under expenses is 155,919 in fiscal year 21. In fiscal year 22, it was 105,000. In fiscal year 23, it was 55,000 in the operating budget under expenses. And this year, there was a capital request. And I, as the chair of Ways and Means, want to make sure that that we get the vehicles that are needed are in the place where it's appropriate, I guess. That's what I'm gonna say.
Did you, I can speak to that when you get to the capital order, if you're asking, if that's what you want to, because I will address that. I do have some, I'd like to make some comments about leasing versus borrowing.
Yeah.
If that's what you're just, referring to.
Anyone else on that? Okay.
Your microphone is off.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Danny.
I saw the green
Director
light.
Letourneau.
You can call me Danny.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments on that? Yes, go ahead.
I just have one question. I was curious on the body camera stipends. Are those paid out at the beginning of the yearly cycle? I'm just curious when people receive their stipends, because it looked like those were already paid out in the budget line.
The police department, I believe, receives their stipends on a biweekly basis. So
I'm sorry.
they receive the stipends on a biweekly basis, I believe.
I think it's, the intention was for it to be rolled into their.
I
salary.
believe in the first 2 years, and I could be wrong on this, as I don't have the contract in front of me, but I believe the first 2 years they're paid in January. One payment in January.
Okay, yeah, my biggest question was when people leave, do they get that payment at the beginning of the year, even if they were to leave, like say a month early, do they still get their full body cam stipend, even if they retire or leave the department?
I don't know.
We
Deputy Chief
don't-
Gordon, do you know?
Yeah, I
don't-
believe they have to be there. That's why it's halfway through the year. So I believe, and again, I don't have the contract in front of me, but I believe that's why it's the way it is.
we don't, to answer your question, if they leave after that, we don't claw the money back at this point. But
You
we
don't.
have been having discussions about how to properly pay stipends, so they are after the period of which they do the service.
So is this
All
year,
stipends.
when did year number 3 start of this contract? Is this the second year or the third year?
We're in the
The final year of, or no, excuse me, we're in the second year.
second
That's
year
right,
of a 3-year.
3 year.
Okay,
That's right. Just
so
one-
the second year of a 3-year, okay,
No,
which means
Is that right?
that,
I have to look at the contract.
which
I don't
means
know.
that people did receive their full body
In
camera
January.
allowance in January.
Correct.
And you said there's no clawback to that at this point.
I don't believe so.
It's a
Okay.
fiscal year. It's also a fiscal year.
You know, is it fiscal or
It
calendar?
is fiscal that paid on a calendar. So the risk is half the stipend. But yes, I don't think that's something that we typically do. It doesn't.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd have to look at the contract.
Anything more on that?
I do want to just reiterate what Director Schindler just said, is that one of the things that she's initiated is coming up with procedures for stipends generally. There's a lot of stipends in a lot of different departments for a lot of different things that people do either periodically or generally. And so she's going to be recommending some processes to make those kind of more standardized and fair and less risky for those reasons that you guys asked.
Counselor Toronzo, you had a question?
Yeah, it was kind of just a follow-up to that is, do we have other stipends in the city that are paid before the job's done?
Yep.
Yep.
Wow,
Sounds that way, doesn't it?
that's, wow. Yeah, we should probably definitely get a good handle on that. That's not a good way of doing business.
The first
Agreed.
little story, the first year that I was the project manager for the budget book, I got a stipend for that. And I purposely said I don't want it till I'm done because one, that feels strange. And two, I needed that kind of carrot incentive to, because you put in extra work, you know. Wanted to see what I needed the win. I needed the win.
I have a question. Does everyone wear them every day? No matter what office you're in, everybody,
Yes.
everyone from the,
The only exception is the administrative staff who are typically in their offices. So the chief, myself, and Lieutenant Dodge, we have other management duties that we have to review the footage. We have to provide the footage to the courts, et cetera, like that. So that we have other duties that go with that. But outside of the 3 people that are in their office, everybody else has to have their camera with them.
okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
And I did confirm with the contract, it is January 1st. And the contract was signed on 2021 and it goes through 2024.
Thank you. And I see Counselor Golub has her hand up. Thank you. Go ahead, Catherine.
I just quickly want to reiterate, thank you, Director Schindler, for prioritizing this. I didn't realize this either. And yeah, I don't think that stipend should be given before work is completed. So thank you for working on it.
Okay. And anything further on that from anyone? Okay. Onward to the next topic then, keeping me right on track. The DLS, Division of Local Services, their website. This was actually one of my questions, of which you know I always have loads of questions, Director Schindler. You've worked in municipal finance for a long time. Is everyone required to give the same information to the Department of Local Services, the DOR? Is it a standard reporting?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So whatever we find on the DLS website is accurate.
Correct.
Okay. I guess that's really all I needed to know on that, because I look at that frequently and they actually have very valuable information. They show how we divide what we spend on different things. And I thought, okay, are other municipalities having to give the same information, and the comparisons that I'm drawing from that are accurate? And that was what I wanted to know. So does anybody else have any questions on the DLS website? I'm probably one of the few people that reads all those IGR notices that come at the bottom, and I learn all of these fascinating things. And anybody else have any questions? No. Okay. So I spoke with Councilor Forgy. I spoke with President Gwynn today and Kathy. I don't think that it is necessary for me to read through all of the first readings on this today, as we will be doing that on Wednesday evening. Do you agree? Or because they're
Well-
just for discussion items.
Yes, I will give you my opinion.
Mhm.
I agree with that because everybody on Ways and Means can see on the agenda what those items are. And we take no action on them. The only thing, is, which is arbitrary, is if you want to read them out publicly, but no action is really needed at this time on any of them because they will go as a first reading to council floor
Mhm.
on Wednesday. And then there will be a second reading, which will come to us at Ways and Means next month.
Mhm.
And that will be the time that Ways and Means will deliberate and make recommendations to full council.
Very good. Thank you. So everybody has their books. You can see what was approved if you care to. Those Capital Improvement Committee meetings are online on GCTV. That's my advertisement for GCTV. If you want to watch and see the information that was given, some of that is also a little time saver as we go through meetings. Councilor Forgy was there, so was I. Yes, Councilor Forgy. Did you have a hand?
Oh, yes, yes. Yes, there's also the Community Preservation Fund reserves that are
Yes, ma'am.
out here that will be going out to council on Wednesday night as well. The only thing I think we need to take up at this point is to appropriate the 116. I think that is appropriate 116 from water retained earnings. Is that a first reading as well? I'm not sure what that is. Wait a minute. I'm
Yeah, I
gonna
was
find
gonna
out.
ask about the community preservation funds, because that is going on Wednesday, right? So do we have to?
Okay,
the-
it's a transfer then. It's a reserve fund transfer request,
Yeah, this is regular business for you guys.
regular business. Okay, so I think we have to address that this evening
Right.
for a recommendation. And that's order number fiscal year 23-102. Shall I read it? Or has this been
We voted
withdrawn?
on the two orders that we had to vote on at the beginning. There's an appropriate 116,684 from water returned earnings to fiscal year 23 debt service, but that's under discussion. That would have to be under its first reading. That can't be voted on right now. Although while Councilor Forgy brought it up, I do have a question. That was quite a lot that we were over. Were we not spending down on something else?
Director Warner is on the line too, so he
Okay.
could probably answer.
This would be on page 13 of our agenda.
Just FY 23-1110.
FY 23-01001320.
102. All right.
It's 16,865.78.
Oh, are
you
you talking about the reserve fund? I'm sorry.
No, that was the library account reserve.
Right, what you just.
Oh, yes, yes, I'm sorry. Please excuse me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we'll just be taking that. We'll be taking the one fiscal FY 23-110. That will be really like a first reading on Wednesday, but we won't be voting on that now. It was a significant sum that we would be appropriating from the debt service, but we're not taking that up for discussion
I'm
now.
very sorry. Thank you
No,
for the
no.
clarification.
Okay, so now I go back to the agenda. Where are we? Okay,
I think we are basically
okay,
done.
other business. Does anybody have any other business? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
We didn't have to do any kind of reading on the community preservation fund
I'm
Well-
sorry.
prior to our meeting on Wednesday. We didn't have to do any kind of reading on the community preservation fund reserve.
We don't have to read that tonight. We'll read through that as a first reading
As a
on
first. Okay.
Wednesday.
Okay, gotcha.
So any other business that anybody has anything that you'd like to speak about? that has to do with finances. Okay, not vacations. All right,
I was just on vacation. though.
I know, I knew that. Our next meeting then will be March 20th and at 6 PM at the City Hall Meeting Room. Thank you, unless otherwise posted. And that will be the first of our capital meetings where we will have, I don't have this in front of me, but it's going to be Director Warner and hopefully our superintendent will be there to speak about the air exchange at the middle school. So with that, on that happy note, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So move 4G.
I'll second that.
Okay, so I'm going to let people just raise your hand or speak out. Do you agree
Aye.
that we
All
should
those in
adjourn?
favor?
Aye.
All right.
We are adjourned then at like, wow, very good, 7:39.